the clicks are baited, journalistic integrity has gone out the window, and the words if, could, and possibly are being thrown around like, I don't know, what gets thrown around quite frequently at a place. Interceptions with Felipe Franks under center. I don't know. But it's wild out there. People are looking for answers, and some of them have found their way here. So I think we should give them some, and we should talk conference realignment. You game?
Let's ride.
Let's do it. Folks, thank you for being here. It's going to be a journey, and life is all about the journey. But buddy, it's tough because it's like, this is so unprecedented, except for the fact that this happens like clockwork every 10, 12 years.
I'm about to say, everyone freaks out when this happens. I'm like, this happens a lot.
Yeah, this is nothing new. I mean, look.
Like a cicada. You wait for the cicadas to come out. It's like every 10 to 15 years.
And it feels like the more we find out about the USC UCLA move, the less crazy it seems, right? So, for example, 2 days ago, it started to come out that UCLA was borderline going to have to shut the doors of their football program. Well, the Big Ten has already loaned Maryland $150 million to bail them out. They loaned Rutgers like another 60 or some change. They wanted the LA market, and UCLA wasn't going to be able to get the money they needed from the Pac-12. So, like, it's starting to make a little more sense, like, why now? I mean, we all knew the TV rights were coming up. I apologize, by the way, folks. Yesterday, I was operating under an incorrect assumption. Florida State, when we launched the ACC network in 2019, Drake, you're the lawyer, so keep me honest here. Here's kind of the lay of the land. In 2012-ish, Florida State and the rest of the ACC members signed a grant of rights. So 2013. That granted their rights to their home games. It's not away games, home games, and I think interconference games too, actually, to the ACC to go sell. Okay. And this is important. So they sold those rights for $1.6 billion through 2026 to ESPN. So that's an important distinction, because there's been a lot of like, oh, we are going to owe ESPN money, or, you know, ESPN's going to pull all these strings. No. ESPN owes the ACC money for our media rights, which the ACC owns. So it's not like ESPN can. So what I'm saying is ESPN also having SEC rights doesn't get them out of it, because they have to pay the SEC now, or the ACC, I'm sorry, for a worthless product. So they really don't want us to leave before that contract is satisfied, or else they're paying money for nothing. Anyway, there would obviously be calculations that they can make up on the back end. Then 2019 rolls around and the ACC decide, hey, Texas has a network. The Big Ten has a network. The Pac-12 has a network. The Premier League has a network. Everyone's got a network. Drake, what do you think the ACC thought they needed more than life itself?
Probably a network.
They felt like they needed a network. Did they secure advertisers before they launched this network, though?
Yes.
No, I hope those were not pre-negotiated.
The really dope shaver and all those like great blenders and stuff.
The tack shaver. For when you want to shave, but you want it to be tactical. So anyway, in 2019, at the launch of that, the ACC, who owned our rights through 2036. So FSU had no say in this. I mean, we may have helped with some stuff, but we were, it's like the opposite of unionization almost. It's literally just giving them, hey, go bargain on our behalf. Instead of collectively, we want you to bargain as a single entity on behalf of all of us. And they sold our rights to ESPN through 2036. So yeah, so that's where we sit right now. ESPN owes the ACC money to distribute ACC games for the ACC teams through 2036. The ACC is owed that money. If we were to leave the conference tomorrow, there's nothing in the grant of rights stopping us from doing that. The new conference just wouldn't be able to cash in on our games. Well, not entirely true. When we played their teams, I think they could. If we played them on the road. So that is, we're not going to go down that right now. But anyway, my point is not to play these hypotheticals, Driz. It's just to say that This is not a straightforward agreement of like, if you go to another conference, you have to pay the ACC money to leave the conference. That exists too, but that's a whole different ballgame over there. Like this grant of rights thing is a pretty straight cut and dry contract of like the right to show our home games on TV does not belong to us. It belongs to the ACC, and they have already sold the distribution of that to ESPN. We set the stage for the people. I want to get into it because there's what I want to happen. There's what I think will happen, but what do I know? I'm a dude playing a dude disguised as another dude, right? And
most underrated movie of all time right there.
100%. And I want us to go full-blown hypothetical mode. Let's tell the folks about whatever it is I need to tell them about due to my contractual obligations. And then let's just talk about what if all these reports, gosh, calling them reports hurts.
You want to play what if? You never want to.
Yeah. I just want to say, what if our phones light up on Wednesday next week and we're going to the SEC? Like, I just want to talk about it. I just want to say, hey, let's just give the people what they want because y'all have been patient. Y'all have listened to us, espouse our beliefs, our views, talk about the Big Ten, all that. And I know what the people want, and that is to hear about the SEC and Florida State's role in a future SEC and Miami getting left behind. So that's what we're going to talk about right after I tell you all about betonline.ag or .net. Sorry, .net. They've got everything, but I don't look, use BetOnline, folks. You can place odds, whatever. Here's what I want to talk about as part of this ad read, where you should go to BetOnline is the new odds to win the ACC in 2022. Driz, I want your opinion on this. I don't think Florida State has ever been a valuable pick to win the ACC until this year. Florida State is plus 2,000. That's 20-1 odds to win the ACC this year. And if you think about it, that sounds like, well, we're not going to win the ACC, but we were like a grand total of like 20 points last year from playing for an ACC title. And you're giving me 20-1 odds? Talking about, I bet $100, I win $2,000. I think there's a lot of value in that bet. And I think that's something I'd lay some money on. What do you think? Value or no value?
No value.
Oof. But anyway, folks, if you want to do that, head to betonline.net where the game starts. Let's say it happens. Phones light up Wednesday. We are headed to the SEC starting in 2023.
That would suck.
It wouldn't be the best timing, tell you that much.
No, it would not.
But look, people thought Missouri was going to get dog walked to the SEC for a decade. They were right, but I think it was 2013. Missouri did make the conference championship or was one game away or something. So
no, I think actually they did. Actually,
yeah, I think they did. I'm pretty sure they made it from the East one year. So look, so let's talk about it from a couple angles. One, what does it do for season ticket sales? What does it do for recruiting? And what do we think realistically the results look like in 2023 and beyond?
So for season ticket sales, I think you will probably see an increase in that. I think you also will see a lot more commitment probably from the individuals because you are going to play more big boy football. So that's definitely going to be a one thing. On the recruiting aspect of it, I do think it's going to be actually help us out overall because the SEC, I think, has produced the most draft picks actually out of all the conferences. And kids really care about that. As much as we don't like to discuss that at all, period. But 2023 and beyond, we have a lot of people in the fan base, a lot of people in media always kind of comparing ourselves to basically and complaining basically like what's going on with Miami, with Florida, with other schools, or how we're not keeping up. That's going to probably be even worse if you go to the SEC because as bad as Arkansas has been for a long damn time, they throw a lot of money behind that. Same with Ole Miss. And if you already complain now about how basically we're not actually supporting the program now, wait till you go into a conference where they send their entire paycheck to the football team. And I need to ask the fan base this too. Are you okay with probably being a middle of the pack team in this conference if we do this right away?
We're going to find out very quickly who we actually are if we were to go to the SEC in a year and a half or whatever. And I worry that like Florida State fans, and this is me talking to you as a fellow fan, as a booster, as a lifelong season ticket holder, I don't know if we are the most self-aware bunch. Like, I think we forget pretty frequently that we only have 10,000 boosters giving to our annual fund. Virginia Tech has 25,000. And to your point, Drake, the money from the TV revenue is entirely irrelevant. Because if you've taken a basic economics class, which everyone in here, I assume, that graduated high school has, you know the effects of price floors, okay? That's what it does. Everyone gets that $60 million check. So yeah, you can buy nicer shit with it, but so can everyone. It's universal basic income. So then it becomes the exact same thing you're in right now. Yeah, you don't get left behind, I guess, by Alabama and Georgia. So you're right. It's better to be on that basic income than to not be getting it while they are getting it. So in that sense, you're equalizing it. But Alabama's boosters are so far ahead of us in giving, it's not even funny. So I would caution folks, and again, I'm operating under the assumption we just joined the SEC. I would be very worried that people are completely losing the forest through the trees and not realizing what we're walking into.
Yeah, I think the fan base, I like to believe a majority of listeners kind of agree with that TBC through the comments. I mean, the SEC, don't get me wrong, I would love to, play Mississippi State, play Texas A&M, have the revenge games with Jimbo, Auburn, Alabama. That'll be really fun as a fan. But when you look at it financially, when you look at what it takes to actually be competitive in this sport, in that conference, it's a whole different ballgame that a lot of our fan base is not accustomed to. And I'm really, really hoping that this fan base in particular is not looking at this with rose-colored glasses, because you and I aren't doing that. And we see the red flags. And when they look through with that rose-colored glasses, all the red flags simply look like flags. And that's where you mess up when you do certain things.
I like that. Red flags look like flags through rose-colored glasses. You're absolutely right, though, because what?
BoJack Horseman. Great show.
Oh, there you go. But yeah, so that is my concern in a nutshell, is that this is not it. I'm not saying I don't want to be in the SEC. I just don't know if we need to rush into it, because
or just be ready.
And I think that there are a lot of things that need to happen for us to succeed in that conference. So again, this isn't me saying we shouldn't go there. It's me just saying, okay, we're there now. Let's say we're there. Do not expect to compete for SEC championships for the next 10 years. Because we haven't landed a decent wide receiver that's allowed to leave his home state in 3 years, except through the transfer portal. We haven't landed a good prep quarterback other than AJ Duffy in 4 years, and we might strike out again this class. We're doing okay with the offensive linemen. We're doing all right in the trenches, but again, the people we're bringing in from high school are young, and we have a lot of transfer portal guys. So when I really ask you, look at your roster, look at our roster, look at who you're going to have to play day in and day out. Do you really think that this team this year, next year, or even what is shaping up for the year after is going to be successful in that conference? I see one of two scenarios here. I want to know which one you think is more likely. Don't give me anything in the middle. Just kowtow to what I want. Do you think it's more likely that we end up with a complete oligarchy where there's 4 good teams, even in the super conference era, that just beat the living mess out of everyone else? Or do you think we end up like the NFL, where the worst team can legitimately beat the best team any given week, and it's just kind of expected that every team will have 2 or 3 losses when we get to, the 12-team playoff time? Or
probably the latter. Probably the latter. I think one of the big things with NIL, I think it actually has done a lot more parity actually overall, which I know folks, and I don't kind of agree with that, especially when you see the recruiting across the country right now. NIL being now at the forefront is basically having everything that was done in the shadows actually now brought to light. And then also you're seeing now institutions where they have stronger alumni, richer alumni actually be able to benefit and help out their schools. That's why you hear Clemson, Dabo was freaking out about it for 3 years. Nick Saban, pretty damn angry. Jimbo, same damn thing. And you have Lane Kiffin over there. This has always been happening. What are you talking about? So this is great. When you see the top dogs kind of bitch and complain about it, it's oh, basically what was our ace in the hole is now everyone else is going to be doing it. So I personally think it's going to be for the NFL model, unless you're Vanderbilt, where you basically be like the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Which is what I kind of alluded to earlier, and I think that is where you're going to go, right? I genuinely believe that the Alabamas of the world are going to start pushing very heavily for players to become employees? Because
no, they're not. They're not.
You don't think so?
Not actually. Because because the NCAA is in court right now. Actually, Johnson versus the NCAA, where the student athlete you were discussing earlier actually is suing to be viewed as an employee, and the SEC as well as the AAU have filed with the NCAA and against doing that, against viewing them as employees.
Yeah. No, I mean that makes sense. So okay, maybe not, but okay. I think when they have 20 teams, they'll feel differently, because I think if you're Alabama, you want these kids to be employees, because then again, you're going to have they're going to set up grades. This is going to be the cap and the minimum that a freshman can make, right? And if you can lower that cap artificially and not let quarterbacks make whatever they're worth on the open market, you get to bring back the bagmen. You have the infrastructure for it. You have the people that know how to do it, and you have the cash for it. Oh, and by the way, you now have a regulatory body that, in this scenario people have cooked up where the NCAA goes away, which is very likely, you basically run the regulatory body as well, because you're the number one cash cow of the regulator. So what you hope for is oh yeah, the most kid makes $100,000 and we can give him $250 on the side. And you go back to the 90s and,
and then basically also can put in incentives for those people out there you want, if you stay with our program, there's incentives with that, which will basically, I know that goes across basically, the inducements or the pay for play, basically we're staying in the institution. But I think eventually down the road, it's going to be a lot more towards that model if we actually have these viewing them as employees. And then also for academics too, you could have that incentives too as well. So that could be basically, you're going to see a lot bigger model like that. But I think that's more with the top tier players or the players coming in basically after a few years, because you're going to see a lot of busts. You see it all the time in the NFL. Trust me, Sergei Bobrovsky, NHL goaltender, terrible pickup, and we were paying on with the floor managers $7.5 million to basically be a backup. So you're actually going to probably be fixing that a lot more too.
Now, this isn't about that. This is about us going to the SEC. And the reason we're down this rabbit hole is because, again, this idea that all of a sudden we're going to be on the equal playing field with Alabama and Georgia, and I almost said Clemson. I'm not willing to accept that they're not going to collapse off a cliff, but the idea that all of a sudden we're back to even is just, you guys hear me say, it's my catchphrase at this point. It's utter nonsense. We are still going to be deep, deep, deep in a hole. So again, we need to stop looking at the SEC and the Big Ten as if this new college football paradigm is going to be our savior, because there's a long, long road ahead before Florida State starts holding up crystal balls again.
See, the Big Ten, I think, is a lot easier actually path for us to actually go quicker towards that. But your point about the SEC is very well taken, because, as my catchphrase, for the past few years, this team has been a 50 shades of ass. And quite frankly, also you see on Twitter, you see on other outlets, we have basically been giving Mike Norvell every single excuse for basically only having 8 wins in 2 seasons. You know what they would do to any SEC coach if they had only won 8 games in 2 seasons? So that's the sort of thing, the mentality that
Brian
we need to do away with.
Out.
Brian Hart, that man, I don't know how that man still has a job. But to me, it's more that I always believe if you have the proper commitment, you can always upgrade. It's like, building a house. You can start off with, really, lower tier house. But if you want to make improvements, you want to make renovations, make it a larger house, you have to put forward the commitment. So you have to ask yourself, each school has to ask themselves, am I willing to sacrifice? What am I willing to put in to actually get to that point? Some schools, they're happy with, the 2-bedroom house, the 2-bathroom. You know me. I want the big ass 18 house, not 18 house, 18 compound. I want the Godfather crib, a bunch of big ass pool outside. So I'm willing to make that large commitment to actually be a top dog and be on top of everybody else. You got to ask yourselves. Some schools, okay, we're getting beat up. Vanderbilt, Wake Forest to an extent. We are not, but we have yet to show that we want to play with top dogs. And if we make this move to either conference, we have to back that shit up.
Yeah, and exactly, because to your point about, I won't try to extend the metaphor, but I will
I was all over the place.
Make the point. Well, but let's look at coaches, right? Because someone listening to this probably just said, well, yeah, but you'll have more money to hire and fire new coaches. No, you won't. Because what's going to happen is you have 20 teams in the Big Ten, 20 teams in the SEC. Let's start with the small number. All of them are making roughly the same amount from these massive media contracts. Don't you guys think that the coaches are going to catch on to this and then they're going to want more money, or at least they're all going to want about the same amount of money commensurate to the pay increase that you just got. It's no different than the housing market, right? Throttled supply aside, when money gets cheaper to borrow, housing prices go up because the sellers know you're getting a better interest rate.
I pick up what you're throwing down, but I'm in the big belief that we're actually about to see a huge decrease in coaching salaries, specifically because of NIL and stuff like that.
But that's irrelevant, right? That's a. I see what you're saying, but that's like, it's like when we're helping somebody through an operating model restructure, and it's like you don't really look at how many employees they have in each function. You look at spend, because whether they want to outsource it or they want to spend it internally doesn't matter. The coaches will still make enough money that you can't fire them after 2 years, is my point. That number may be lower.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, I mean, the longevity of the contract.
Correct. Yeah. But if you don't have boosters, but the point I'm making is that you're still going to need booster support who are willing to make those decisions. So this idea that, we'll have more money, so if someone's not winning in a year and a half, 2 years, we can just fire them. No, because they're going to structure their contracts because they're smart. Jimmy Sexton's smart based on how much money you're making. You're right. I agree with you, by the way. It may be $2.5 million a year instead of 10, but it'll still be an amount of money where the money you're getting from ESPN, well, technically your conference dividend via ESPN, is not going to be enough to just make these rapid coaching changes.
It won't be rapid, but this is more basically like I was saying, just like you're not going to see Cristobal 8 years for $80 million.
Yeah,
I mean, he's making around 10. Good. Yeah, that's not happening ever again. Dabo 9.5. That's not happening ever again. Mike Norvell being paid 3.5 right now. You wouldn't, if this was 10 years like later, you probably would be making 1.5 because no one gives a damn what's doing in the American Athletic Conference. And I think that also begs the question now: if we make this move in 2023, like next year, do you keep Mike on? Because I don't think so.
That is a great question. Yeah, I think so. I think you try to. I don't think you go into a new. Well, maybe you suck this year.
I would say no. Do you? But also, it's more also. Do you want Mike Norvell's 3 years here? Say he goes 6-6. Do you want to bring 14 wins in 3 seasons to the SEC?
So, if your question is the barrier to entry higher for him to be your coach in 2023 if you're going to head to the SEC, I 100% agree. Yes, 6-6, he's gone. I agree with that, yes. Now, if he wins like 8 games, I don't think you fire him just to like put someone's head on a spike and parade it around. You know what I mean? Like, I think if he shows growth and headed in the right direction, then yeah, you say, hey, you won, 3 games, then you won 5, then you won 8. Now we're going to the SEC. You'll probably see some recruiting dividends from that. Yeah, you give him it. You don't fire him to make a point, but I agree with you that the standard jumps by about 2 wins for him to keep his job.
Yeah, to me, you got to win at least 9 to keep him there.
I could have said any number, you would have added 1 to it, but yeah.
I'll probably he needs to win 10 for me.
The last thing is, and then we'll get out of here because I think we've made 1 point and one solid strand has tied all this conversation together. And that is quite simply, money will not be the answer to all of your problems. If all of your opponents are making the same amount of money, it will stop the bleeding. It will stop us from getting lapped, but it will not be an equalizer if, again, everyone's brought up to the same plane and we still only have 10,000 boosters. Because you're going against schools, Drake, I think you said it, where people prioritize booster giving to their college. Just doesn't happen at Florida State for a litany of reasons. But I mean, I'm talking about like it is a budgeted item where they will go without Chipotle frequently to pay their booster membership instead.
I'm pretty sure some fans actually garnish their wages immediately to their football program.
I'm sure. Yeah. And that's the thing is there's still going to be an external cost of doing business. It will not all just be, we got this ESPN money now. And in fact, I worry. I think back when we were in Phi Delta, right? Great guys at Phi Delta. I love those guys. But do you remember when so the guys that lived in the fraternity house used to not pay dues? I promise this is going somewhere, folks. And then we made them start paying dues. We had 60 dudes lived in the house. We all of a sudden were getting $500. Yeah, $500 a semester from each guy. The problem is when we started doing that, we ended up net negative because then no one wanted to pay for anything anymore. Because you have in-house dues now. You use that. It's like, dude, we can't spend the money 4 times. So I worry like it's almost going to get worse where people are like, oh, well, we're going to have the ESPN money now. It's like, no. That's table stakes. Like that just gets us there. We still have to be writing checks and giving money and doing NIL deals if we want to win in this conference.
One, I hated you for actually bringing that up in chapter. I remember specifically voting against that, and now near hearing about the negative, yeah, F you for that. But I don't think that would actually happen to us, actually, because I think with Fidel, like when you were living in the house, and I know this is bringing the analogy a little longer, so I'll try to keep it quick. The benefits of living there were basically, as you know, just easier access to, to fun, like actually getting ready to go out and actually being with your boys. And the results were probably not centered around the house. When we move to the SEC or the Big Ten, if we don't continue our commitments, it'll show immediately by us like winning only 2 or 3 games. And that's where oh Lord, no, I need to come in there. And that's kind of where the weird fandom, we're like, oh, we need to do this. We need to win games. And that's the big thing that we love about sports. Where basically we interject ourselves. Like, what's the old Funny or Die skit? Where basically they're saying like, I had no effect on the game, but I'm going to treat every single thing like I did that. That's going to actually be boosters with college football. And it's already has it now. So if we win only 1 or 2 or 3 games, people are probably going to open their mind. Oh, wallets up.
Yeah, that's a very fair rebuttal to that. It's like the drop off could be so steep that people are like, oh gosh, we got to stop this. And we saw that with Willie Taggart, right? Like that Wake Forest game, literally we went from broke to we just magically found $24 million. They're like, we got it. It's fine. We'll put it on the platinum card. Just swipe it. We don't care. Get them out of here. So yeah, you're right. There might be some of that. Either way, I think that folks should keep a weathered eye on the horizon. I think that, I'm not predicting. I think it's gonna calm down a little bit. Hey, maybe we're in the SEC this time next week and we're talking about it. And if we are, folks, it'll be exciting. But just remember, like, there's a long road ahead, and there's a lot this team needs to do to improve. And I hope that this year is a step in that direction. But we need to take that step too before we get our hopes too high. So, Driss, thanks for coming on late night with me, buddy. I love when I can call you on the cell phone late night when I need your love, and it's awesome. So thanks for stopping by, folks. We're glad you're here. I'm glad he was here. That was Drake. I'm Max, and this was Locked On Seminoles.
Take care, everybody, and please don't do this partnership. For the love of God, that's the 2 a.m.
A loose partnership.